Yeah, good morning. A bit of breaking news, I guess, in the last hour or so. It looks as though some missiles have been fired from Iran, and Israel has vowed to retaliate. What's the situation?
Yeah, Mike, I wish I was coming to you with news of a ceasefire, calm returning to the Middle East, as sort of was intended this morning by US President Donald Trump and his announcements of a ceasefire overnight here in Israel. But that's unfortunately not the case. We've seen two missiles fired, two ballistic missiles. Let's be clear about what we're firing here. These aren't little mortars being lobbed. These are serious, large-scale weaponry being fired at Israel, heading towards Israel's north. They were taken down, fortunately, with no injuries. But this is a complete violation of the ceasefire as was intended. And Israel already, we've heard from Foreign Minister Israel Katz, and now from the Israeli IDF Chief of Staff Zamir, who has stated that Israel will respond in kind, that this sort of violation of the ceasefire will not be tolerated, and that Iran will not be allowed to just fire ballistic missiles willy-nilly in order to appease its own regime and its own people and look powerful in the face of its, in effect, defeat.
Is there suspicion then that this was more of another vanity sort of strike, if you like, albeit it could be still a very dangerous one? But there's the ones that they sent to Qatar last night, very much telegraphed. They told everybody they were coming, so everybody could get out of the way. I think only one missile actually hit the base that it was aiming at. Is this so? And the large reason for that seems to have been to convince their own people that they were fighting back against the great Satan. Is this something similar?
Hard to tell at this stage, Mike, and honestly I find it a tad baffling. I mean, two missiles, obviously Iran knows with Israel's comprehensive aerial defensive shield that these two missiles are unlikely to even land, let alone cause huge significant damage. Not to say, again, as you pointed out, they most certainly can, as we saw this morning with the missile strike in Beersheba, the town in southern Israel. Serious damage, loss of life is always on the cards when you are firing, multi-ton ballistic missiles at another country in large civilian areas. But Israel is very capable of shooting these down, and to fire just two missiles, a relatively small barrage, it's frankly baffling, and I'm trying to still wrap my head around what the thinking would be from Iran as to why they do this, whether it's purely vanity or there is some larger goal, or they want to restart hostilities. I can't fathom the thinking.
Is there any chance that there's a sort of rogue group within the group, if you like, in terms of, the Ayatollah signs a peace deal, but there are some who don't want one, and so therefore occasionally there'll be a bit of a sort of a missile attack from somewhere which perhaps wasn't authorized?
Well, speculation will run rampant at this point, whether that might indeed be the case, but it would signify a significant breakdown of leadership and military order in Iran if that were the case. I mean, again, that's the sort of thing that you see happening with Hamas out of Gaza, or you see Hezbollah out of Lebanon, but these are small, militant, non-state actor groups with sub-partitions and different factions involved. Obviously, there are factions inside Iran, but ostensibly it is a state government that is meant to have all the state controls, regulations, and monopoly on violence that any state should have. And frankly, if the Ayatollah has lost control, maybe it indicates something else going on in Iran. But at the moment, that's a black hole. It's impossible to know, and all I can say sitting here in Tel Aviv is that leadership here is very angry at this violation and is fully prepared to respond in kind.
Yeah, so no doubt we're going to have another few days of uncertainty, because it all got calmed down quite well and quickly last night, didn't it?
Certainly it did. There was, we had the statement coming from US President Donald Trump saying that we were going to a ceasefire. There was period of uncertainty as to whether or not the individual parties were going to agree publicly and what was going to happen. And then there were these indications that came through that each party was going to agree. All this happening, by the way, as we here in Israel were sitting under ongoing wave after wave of rocket fire from Iran, starting at about 4:35 a.m. here, if my timing's correct, going all the way till about 7:30, just wave after wave, until it was supposed to be that ceasefire was supposed to take effect. At that point, it was supposed to end. We were talking about having an ongoing ceasefire for the time being. Obviously, no one under the delusion that it was necessarily going to hold forever, but people believing that this was going to hold for the time being, and that Iran had been kowtowed by the involvement of the US and obviously the very significant strikes there, the bunker busters that were taking out the nuclear facilities, and the threats from the US to escalate further should things escalate. Where we stand now, I mean, it's unknown and unknowable for the time being. We'll have to wait to see how it all plays out over the next few hours and days.
Sure. Asher, good to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Asher Westropp-Evans, their Middle East expert based in Tel Aviv. One from James in Rugby, could be the tweet of the day. Never mind a regime change in Iran, it's a regime change here. that's needed. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. One here from GB. It says, why is our country suddenly being governed by Lord Hermer, an unelected left-wing bald man accountable to no one? Who does he think he is? The new Lord Protector? Well, this is the thing, and nobody's willing to admit that everybody's in sort of thrall to this guy. Nobody's willing to admit that this guy seems to be dictating government policy every single 5 minutes of the day. Mike, the plank at NATO today saying 5%. Rubbish. They will not be in office in 5 years' time. It will be reformed to sort out this mess, says Richard on the Costa del Sol. And Vincent in North Yorkshire says this. Morning, Mike. Another mad day in a mad country. Someone needs to tell the US that Keir Starmer does not speak for the majority of people in this nation. He's nothing more than a squatter in number 10 and will be ejected the first chance we're given. Great show. Well, I think that's true. I've often said that the Prime Minister of this country should be treated as if he's like a football manager. You know, he doesn't own the company, he doesn't own the brand, he doesn't own the club. He's only hired to run it. And he's supposed to run it reasonably well and reasonably successfully and reasonably prudently. None of which right now Keir Starmer is actually doing. Is he really stewarding the economy well? No. Is he making our reputation bigger and better on the international stage? Absolutely not. Is he safeguarding the economy? No. Is he doing the best he can to stop the boats from bringing illegal migrants here by the thousand every week? No. What is he doing that's actually any good for this country? Anybody? Can you think of anything? Because I can't. This is Talk.